narrative that the U.S. was going to lose reserve currency status, why it's never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And
because crypto, that seems to be a threat to the dollar, doesn't it?
I think it's the opposite.
Oh, really?
I think stable coins could reinforce dollar supremacy, because with stable coins could end up being one of the largest buyers of U.S. treasuries or T-bills.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, if you are using a stable coin in Nigeria that's backed by the US dollar, you don't actually have to have dollars. It's on your phone. You can transact. So I think there's a very good chance that crypto is actually one of the things that locks in dollar supremacy.
And is that why it was crucial that Donald Trump get involved in crypto rather than trying to constrain it like Joe Biden was?
I think constrain's too mild a word. I think make it extinct.
Oh.
So this administration's commitment to digital assets, it's innovation, because there's so many other things that happen around digital assets. And also, it's one of those things that it's one of the most important phenomena that's happening in the world, and the U.S. just ignored it.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to another episode from your favorite crypto news-related channel, the Good Evening Crypto team. And today, we got a brand new face joining us. We've got Trough up in the top right-hand corner. And Johnny, some people have been calling you Johnny Canada. Tonight, we're calling you Johnny Crypto, my friend. We are back for another Good Evening Crypto stream, and I couldn't be more excited for some of the topics we're going to break down. We're going to talk about stablecoins. We're going to talk about ETFs. But most importantly, we're going to be talking about the political impact that is being had on crypto right now, because when you look towards the back end of this year, between the stablecoin bill already passing the Senate, a market structure bill possibly being passed towards the end of August, this is going to be a completely different market in only 6 to 8 months. And we're going to talk about that on tonight's show, guys. If you're excited, we already got 1,200 live listeners here joining us. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the new Good Evening Crypto channel. Now, I do want to provide a little bit of hopium in regards to the channel as well. We've been getting a lot of questions about a particular hat. We also have a David Schwartz hat we're going to be raffling off, and I'll pull that. It's over on the other side of the room, so I got to kick it over to you, Johnny, and then we're going to start breaking all these topics down. But in regards to what Bassett had said, he said they ignored this industry. I wish we had been ignored. We were ridiculed. We were sued. It's like we were held underwater, but somehow, some way we came up and we took a final breath of air here. Now it's a new day and age for the XRP community. So I couldn't be more excited. Johnny, how are you feeling tonight? And thanks for being here.
Well, I'm feeling great. It's evening time. Oh, and good evening to all the crypto maniacs out there. I'm super excited. Can't wait to hop into it. So much good news. And you know what? Bassett is 100% right. Yes, and so many guys, Canada. Was I in Canada? Was I not in Canada? I'll leave it up to you. Did I sneak in some Alberta maple syrup? Who knows? You'll have to stick around to find out. But Abs, what's very interesting is Bassett is not wrong. At the end of the day, there's a whole effort going around about de-dollarization. Well, what's the best way to kind of fight that? A stable coin, where now all these countries want to comply and use stable coins. What do they have to do? You got to back it by, guess what? U.S. dollars and U.S. treasuries. And that's it. It's all it can be, right? So that's why Tether could be in trouble, because they're not using it. So think of how genius this is. Here, the world is trying to move away from the dollar. And the U.S. is like, oh, okay, well, you know what? We'll just introduce this new thing called a stable coin. And oh, by the way, the only way you can use it is if it's backed by a U.S. dollar. And now you recreate demand across the world to bring some of that money back. So if you're thinking about de-dollarization, you may start thinking again. I think it's genius.
Here's what's interesting, Johnny, and I'm going to kick it back to Dom too, but I'm going to lead him off with some XRP stuff. We'll toss him a softball on the beginning of today's Good Evening Crypto episode. But today we talked about the collapse of Tether. And what do we know from Senator Bill Hagerty? He told us that when the Genius Act is passed, Tether is currently non-compliant. And it seems as if they have no ambition to comply with the new U.S. regulation being passed. Now, why is that important for our listeners? That is going to present a huge opportunity for a product like RLUSD or the USDC stablecoin, which are both available on the XRP ledger, to step into this market and become the largest stablecoin on the planet, guys. So I'd love to hear from the chat. One's if you think the Genius Act is the beginning of the end for Tether. Two, if you think Tether will continue to survive and thrive here in the digital economy. Johnny, any quick comments on that before we roll into some XRP?
Look at you with the rhymes. Survive and thrive. I like it. It's running. It's rubbing off. That's good. Rhymes are a good thing. Abs, at the end of the day, I think Tether will survive because it's big. It's big. It's massive. It's going to get a haircut. It's going to get sliced, significantly, and it's going to either find a niche market to play in. But I can't imagine them just folding up camp and going away. I think if anything, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to figure out, hey, we're going to have to kind of, if I were them, I'd be figuring out how do I comply. All right, what do I got to sell off? Get rid of the gold, get rid of the commercial paper, all the garbage, and start converting all that to cash and try to comply to be able to be a player in this game. Otherwise, if they don't, Abs, they're going to find themselves in a very niche area of the market, and they're going to shrink down dramatically. And what's going to be interesting is then what will be the impact? Think about this, Abs. There's a significant correlation to the price of Bitcoin and the printing of Tether. Well, if Tether goes away or is in trouble or shrinks, what drives Bitcoin? Very interesting question. Now, of course, if we get the Bitcoin Reserve Act and things like that, that's a whole nother story. Now we're changing the game. But right now, if you think about it, the biggest driver of Bitcoin's price has been, the pumping of Tether. And now with Tether being under the gun, it's going to be very interesting to see how Bitcoin reacts if we don't get that extra liquidity coming from new sources.
Well, again, we're going to start talking about XRP, guys, just for the fun of it. But we already have 2,300 live listeners here. If you're excited and enjoying this content, be sure to show us some love, smash that like button, and we'll stick around for a little bit of overtime. We're just having fun on this Thursday night, guys. And what's the reality here, Johnny? XRP has outperformed the rest of the crypto market, holding $2 for almost the entire calendar year of 2025. And what people fail to understand about the XRP price chart, they'll talk about this all-time high that was printed back in 2017. But even during the 2017 bull run, what happened? We had 0 daily closures above $3. That means we went from $2.70 all the way to $3.84 and all the way back down to $2.75 within a matter of 24 hours. This is something completely different. Not only did we break the $2 price target, we've held it for over 6 months. And so for the XRP community, we were dragged through the mud. I think that this could be that new 50-cent price target. And here is why. We're on the precipice of massive demand entering this space like we've never seen before. And I don't think Dominic knows this information, so I'm going to throw him on screen while we kind of go through this. The final deadlines for the XRP ETFs, and this is going to be massive for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to remove a lot of the uncertainties around the digital asset space. Being able to buy it on an ETF in a retirement portfolio, it's going to make it very simple, and it's going to remove a lot of the uncertainties for newer crypto investors. But number two, Johnny, what's going to happen from this point forward? The Wall Street suits are walking into rooms and giving presentations talking about the possibilities and the use cases for the XRP ledger, guys. And it starts with Grayscale on October 18th, 2025. That is going to be the first date for approval. They are a $40 billion asset manager. Then it is 21 shares a day later, followed by Bitwise, Canary Capital, and of course, Wisdom Tree, which manages $100 billion, and Franklin Templeton, which manages $1.5 trillion, all having their applications hopefully approved within 1 week of each other. Dom, it's been a long time that we've been talking about the opportunity here for Wall Street to start buying XRP and using it to their advantage, not just speculating on price, but instead using the actual blockchain to advance existing business models. And that's kind of the idea that I was getting at here. What are some of your thoughts on now, finally, Wall Street stepping into this market and XRP having 19 different products sitting and waiting at the SEC?
No, I mean, I think that's great. Scott Bessett said it best. The stablecoins are paving the way for the whole market. You guys saw Circle, the stock price. I think when they were going to market for the IPO, it was initially priced at, I think, $30 if I'm mistaken, and now it's hit $200 today. So the amount of interest just overall in the space is tremendous. Scott Bessett, I think, is probably low key one of the biggest proponents in the industry right now that not a lot of people are talking about. So that interest overall is going to funnel down to XRP. It's one of the biggest coins, and let's cross our fingers that they can get this through soon.
Here's what's great as well is that not only is Circle a public company, Johnny, what do we know for sure? Circle is working with Ripple to expand USDC onto the XRP ledger. And I think this reminds me a lot of Coinbase's IPO during the last bull market. I know there are some structural differences, but what happened? Coinbase IPO'd, had this massive historic price performance, but it was followed by a year and a half of consolidation. I think something similar could be going on here with Circle, where it IPO'd for $30. It basically did an 8x here, trading above $200. Wouldn't surprise me if it tops out somewhere around 260, and then we head into some sort of a consolidation range at the end of 2025. But that's anybody's best guess, guys. It's really, I'm just playing a guessing game here. Johnny, what do you think about the IPO craze? I'm hearing rumors of Kraken IPOing. There's rumors that Ripple may IPO. Now, I don't think Ripple will IPO because they do not need to source new liquidity from the public markets. They can simply sell the XRP on their balance sheet and get instant access to cash. And I think I shared this with you last week, is that right now Ripple has $3.8 billion in cash on their balance sheets ready to work and get some acquisitions going. So what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, there will be an IPO craze. There's no question about it. Absolutely, that's going to happen. And they're all going to do the same thing that Coinbase did. So they'll start out high. Coinbase, I think, same thing, 20, 30 bucks, went up to like 300. And then I'm looking at the charts right here. Within 3 months, it crashed, because what happens is that the investors, the people who get the pre-IPO apps, they get to sell. They can't sell initially. They've got to hold for 3 or 6 months. And you can literally see the chart. And the selling began about 3 months later, and it brought Coinbase all the way back down. You can almost bet your
Repeat
butt.
that again for newer investors, guys. You heard that right here. People who get access to the stock pre-IPO, there are contractual requirements that prevent them from selling for 3 to 6 months. And then after 3 to 6 months, that's when we see the profit taking begin. Wouldn't surprise me at all if we see it with Circle, Johnny, where this thing IPO'd for $31. That means fair market value. People thought $31, $9 billion company, that makes sense. Now, what is this? This is a $90 billion company, something along those lines. So, floor is yours. I think that's for itself.
So that's going to happen. This is what I'm talking about, Abs. There's going to be a shit ton of money-making liquidity that's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years as we begin to see companies come into this space. This is what people want, access to this. And they all understand now, the big boys. But this isn't retailers, that are playing the space right now. But these are the big boys again, and they understand that this market is going to go very, very high. And of course, there's always going to be that crash on the back end, where they're going to pull profits and they're going to dump on retail. But just be expecting that. And you don't think Krakens, Upholds, and the Ripples of the world don't want a piece of it. Now, Ripple's going to be a little different because of the fact that they have a massive. Oh, that's right. We got donations. I forgot. We get donations. Shout out to Topher tonight.
Shout out to Topher. First of all, Topher's a legend to the community, but he said the wave is coming. Grab your surfboards. Now, you may need a motorboat, but floor is yours, John.
That's right. And make sure you got your floaties if you don't want to swim. But anyway, point being is, it is going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to be a fun ride on the way up. I mean, I've lived through this in 97, 98, and that same kind of thing is coming. And just wait till when, like what you're seeing happening right now on these IPOs, that's one IPO that everybody went flooding into. Wait till when people start realizing, oh, wow, there's that kind of money to be made on the token side as well, when they figure out what the token market looks like. And people start figuring out, don't forget, in a year from now, E-Trade and Charles Schwab will now be offering crypto. So people don't know how to buy crypto. And the standard mom and pop and grandpa, they don't know how to do it. They don't know what a Coinbase is or a Kraken is, right? But they know E-Trade, they know Robinhood, and they know they're Charles Schwab. Then go in and type in a ticker symbol and go buy. Once that becomes that simple for them, that opens up the whole game. So I think you're going to continue to see IPOs happening. You're going to continue to see that running. Now that kind of Trump has kind of made that blessing of, okay, yeah, this is happening. And you're seeing signals from around the world recognizing that the U.S. is taking a leadership role. And so, again, just another indicator of the kind of money. I mean, dude, that's a 10X in, what, a week? 2 weeks? How long has Circle been out there? 2 weeks.
Oh, that's nothing in crypto. Come on.
No, 10X is something. I'm not going to, you say a 2X, you're right. Crypto, like 2X, nobody wants that.
That's sarcasm, of course.
I get you. I know.
But Johnny, here's the reality that the largest pools of capital are just beginning to step into this market. And I want to kick it to Dom here just to give him kind of a chance to comment. What we know for sure is that when BlackRock launched their Bitcoin ETF, it was at that exact moment that the marketing machine was turned on from the biggest companies in America, whether it was JP Morgan being anti-crypto for a decade or companies like BlackRock just saying this is a nefarious industry, it's not to be taken seriously. The moment that they could profit off of it, that is the moment that they started marketing it to their clients. And we're on the precipice of that towards the back end of this year. When companies like Grayscale, Franklin Templeton, Wisdom Tree, all have XRP ETFs and can profit off of their clients buying the asset, that is when we're going to see numbers like this start to enter some of our favorite altcoins, guys. But we are 15 minutes into today's episode. We got 3,800 live listeners here joining us on a Thursday night. If you're enjoying today's episode, show us some love, smash that like button, and we'll stick around for some overtime during today's show. Now, just this month alone, BlackRock has scooped up $750 million worth of Ethereum. That's not accumulation. That's positioning, according to this person on Twitter. They see what's coming. If you're still on the sidelines, you're the exit liquidity. Now, maybe I disagree with that, Johnny Krypto. The point that I wanted to make within this this piece of data, is that they accumulated $750 million worth of Ethereum. When these numbers start coming into some of our favorite projects, the H-bars, the chain links, the AVAXs, the XRPs, $750 million new dollars coming into the order books can push us to the levels that we've been discussing. A $4 XRP, right? A $50 chain link, a $100 AVAX. Like, these are the price targets that we're kind of waiting on and estimating here. Dom, what are you anticipating from an impact standpoint? The second these companies can profit off selling XRP, these are going to be the biggest adversaries of the crypto market. They're going to be the ones fueling the next $1 trillion into this asset class.
I mean, like, right off the bat, if they're buying Ethereum, which I would say objectively, right, just isn't as capable as XRP, then they should be buying the XRP ETF when it comes out, right? And the other thing is that it doesn't really get mentioned, and I forget about this. You couldn't buy XRP for the longest time. Like, myself as a retail investor, if you're in New York City, New York State, whatever it was, you actually couldn't buy it. You had to go on a certain exchange. I think Uphold had it. There were a few others, but it was really tough to get. So I bet there's a lot of pent up demand for it as well, and it hasn't really been spoken about. I'm in the institutional finance space, and there's a lot of talk in crypto right now, just in general, and it's all Bitcoin, it's all stablecoins. Stablecoins is the big one because of the legislation, and Solana for some reason for the meme coin craze.
Oh my goodness, KG with the $100 donation, my friend. Now, that's the first time we ever got a $100 dono. And what KG said is, Abs, give my brother Matches a shout out. Shout out to Matches, my friend. And I also want to give a huge thank you to Mentalect, who also commented. And Johnny, shout out to the baby boomers here. Boomers are entering crypto. Entering mass means crypto entered the 1998 internet boom stage. That is music to my ears. Huge shout out to Mentalect. Huge shout out to Topher and KG. I cannot thank you enough for your unconditional support. This guy has been a day one kind of listener, and we love and appreciate every single person. But massive shout out to KG. Cannot thank you enough for helping out the brand new Good Evening Crypto channel. Now, Johnny, listen, for $100, what are you going to do? A song, a dance? What do you got?
I'll tell you what, I was gonna say KG actually took the wind out of my sails because Poncho says, "Oh man, Abs must be using Motel 6 Wi-Fi again." You know what? But I was gonna suggest if a few more donations come in, maybe he can upgrade his Wi-Fi. But thanks to KJ, I think Abs may be able to upgrade his Wi-Fi. Maybe he won't be skipping around and hopping in and out of there. Thank you, Rowan.
Let me break the rumors down, guys. Let me dispel a lot of these rumors. First of all, this is no Motorola 6 over here, my friends. Listen, only one of us doesn't use an iPhone. That is Johnny Krypto, but hopefully my Wi-Fi is coming in more clear. I also want to give a huge shout out to Romo Royal, who commented 833 is the new 589. Now, Dominic doesn't know about this inside joke yet, guys. What is this? Johnny Krypto.
No, you got to play the video. You got to play the video. Let me see the video.
All right, so cover us with some airtime. Give us some crypto content. I'm going to locate that video.
Yeah, you go find the video. I'm going to talk about it.
Let me just give a huge thank you and a huge shout out to every single person who loves and watches this show. Dennis just commented, massive thank you for your donation as well. And shout out to Romo Royal. Big thank you to you guys for supporting this channel. Reporting for duty. Shout out to you. Dennis is always in the house. But Johnny, give me some thoughts. I'll pull up that 833.
Yeah. So while you go grab that, we'll let him see what it is. First of all, guys, thank you so much for the support. That certainly helps keeping the thing going. Wow, we got another massive one. So while you're pulling that up, Fire Dog, that's my man. Fire Dog, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's a really awesome. And he says, I want his shirt off for the rest of the episode. That's not going to happen, Fire Dog.
Listen, here's the thing.
Fire Dog, you don't want that. You don't want that.
Let's not turn it into that kind of show.
Yeah. That's the
Listen,
only
we'll do
one.
any requests as long as the clothes stay on, right? You
Right.
want a little song, you want a little dance, but I do want to give a huge thank you to Fire Dog. We appreciate it, guys, and I cannot thank you all enough for helping out the channel. We're brand new, and we're going to keep growing here. Now, a lot of people may not know, what is the old 833? And there were some big rumors out there, Johnny. Is that your price target for XRP? Is that what you're anticipating by the end of the month for the XRP price chart? That is not true, my friends. What we have instead is Johnny Krypto knocking the wind out of somebody. Oh, let me see this. Here we go, guys. And I apologize. We're doing this live on air. Let me pull this up in the background. Here it is, Johnny Krypto. And let me throw Dom. Dom, if you haven't seen this, this is why Johnny Krypto is now known as Mr. 833. Here it is. And from that point forward, he was labeled not Johnny Krypto, not the Italian Stallion, but Mr. 833 going forward. And I got to admit, Trevor commented nothing. He just donated $100. Massive thank you to Trevor, guys. I cannot thank you enough for helping out and supporting the channel. Now, Trevor, I don't know what to say, my friend, because you didn't ask anything. So I just want to give a huge thank you and a big shout out. We've never received a $100 donation. Started with KG, Trevor with another one, guys. Cannot thank you enough. We're humbled that you would even do that for us. So thank you so much. This person commented, shout out to John. Listen, John fell for the clickbait yesterday, and I think he knows what I mean by that. Abs, please bring back grade school days of GMC. LOL. I loved it. And what I think he's referring to is when before I could grow any facial hair and I was doing GMC, I look like my boy Dom up here. Nothing on my face. It's a new day and age, my friends. And now we're rocking the cave.
You know what? If we get a big enough donation, maybe we play a clip of the old Jim C when you were underneath the staircase and you had no facial hair. I had no head hair. It was a completely different show. And that might be something we might, I think maybe that's what he's asking for. I don't know.
Absolutely, guys. And somebody said, this is Trevor, actually. Big shout out to you and a big thank you, my friend. We really appreciate you guys. And we're going to continue doing this show, finding ways to improve. Now, I hope you all are loving the new content because what I'm doing a little bit differently, we're doing the short form content. We're applying some editing to it. So I think we're giving you guys some really high quality content here on the new Good Evening Crypto channel. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts because we do these videos for you. The reason we're on here live is because we want to talk to you guys. So big shout out to every single person who's on here and joining us. And I know we kind of cut Dom off there, but Dom, I think you made a great point. Two things, just 24, actually it was more like 24 months ago at this point. It was really difficult to buy XRP. Wasn't available on Coinbase, wasn't available on the majority of United States exchanges. And now we're moving into a situation where not only do we know about XRP, they're going to be pitching this to their clients once these ETFs are approved. So feel free to kind of remind me what you would address there and when we'll roll with it.
Yeah, no, that exact point. And then the other thing is, so you made a comparison with ETH. I think that from a capability standpoint, XRP can do more. It's quicker, faster, more efficient, better connections. So I think it has higher potential and therefore would garner more interest from the investment community, right? As an ETF, it's going to open up institutional capital from the big shops you mentioned, client accounts, family offices. So it'll be exciting. We just need Jerome to cut rates. I don't know what that was today. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, I know he did. What I did read and see was that he's saying we're going to get 2 more cuts for the rest of the year. So, we'll see where that goes.
I think if you time that up, the rate cuts with the legislation being passed, with an ETF on the market, those 3 things together is what's really going to drive the price.
Exactly, because you need the liquidity. And don't forget, so the rate cut will bring liquidity, but here's the other thing that will unlock liquidity, which is the regulation. And we've been talking about that for a while. Now, the Genius Act is step 1, because that will help at least lay out for stablecoins what that looks like. It'll also signal to the world that, hey, this is a new asset class now here to stay. But the big one is the infrastructure bill, which when we were talking to, we were at Bitcoin conference 2 weeks ago, and no, that's not going to happen. Actually, you know what? Nobody realizes we had a wrestling contest, arm wrestling contest in Vegas. Abs went up against Mario, went up against Jeremy, and I don't know if did it go against Gonzo too, or was it just you two? I'm not going to give anybody results, Abs. I'm going to leave that up to you if you want to share that. But there were arm wrestling contests that did happen in Vegas. Not the one everybody wanted, but there were a few other ones. And yeah, Abs is a hell of an arm wrestler. So you won't see me go. I'm past. I'm too old for that shit. I'm the judge. But anyway,
now, here's what I'm more excited about, Johnny. And this is something that I don't think Dominic has seen yet. Brad Garlinghouse had publicly stated during the Apex event earlier last week that he believes the XRP ledger could capture 14% of Swift's global volume by the year 2030. So imagine what that would do to the price chart. Now, there's a couple of different things. If Dom hasn't heard this news, it's kind of fun because I don't think he has any context to this. So that's why it's kind of fun to point this out. Right now, Swift is doing $5 trillion worth of daily volume. 14% of that is $700 billion. If the XRP ledger was doing $700 billion worth of daily volume every single day, forget a $2, forget a $10, forget a $40 XRP, Johnny, we would need a multi-$100 XRP to handle that amount of liquidity and that amount of volatility on the ledger. Give me some thoughts there, and then we'll go straight to Dom.
Well, I mean, that's why when we talk about, that's why everybody's excited about it. That's why the XRP community is as big as it is, Abs. Because what you just described is what, when people bought into this in 2017, the big narrative was this was going to be the cross-border payment solution. It was going to replace SWIFT. And that's what drove that thing up. Okay. Now, people have been holding on to that story. And if this comes to fruition, just talking 14%, you're talking a significant number of daily trade volume. And remember, we talked about to be able to hold, we don't care about, like you talked about it earlier, we don't care about price going up to $3 and back to $2. That's a pump and dump. That's a speculative pump and dump play that nobody cares about. None of us as investors want to see the price go up to $100 and come back down to $50 overnight. We want it to go up there and stay up there and be sustainable. And for that, what was that? Abs last week on Slapski. He said, "Look,
listen, I am not going to defend myself, but that is Johnny. You defend your friend.
Yeah. Let me just say this. First of all, we love Zach because no attack here. But I'm just going to say, it was more like the other way around. Like, here, Dennis said exactly what we were thinking. Like, where the hell was Zach? We didn't see him. I really didn't see too much of Zach at the XRP Vegas conference. And oh, by the way, we had a booth. And I didn't see him because maybe he stopped by and maybe we weren't there as we were walking around. But I just got to be honest with you. I didn't see Zach. I don't think it was the other way around. And in fact, we did find Zach that evening, if you remember, on Saturday night. You guys did get together and, they kind of do a little photo image together. I mean, but that was about it. Didn't see too much of Zach. I didn't get the sense Zach was looking for you. But anyway.
Listen, here's the reality, guys. And I'm just going to say this. First of all, I'm easy to find. Not only did we have a booth, but we also were live both days at the event. I interviewed everybody, and I would have loved to interview Zach. I asked him to come on live for the interview, and we had 3 behind-the-scenes conversations. There's no fake news from Abs, guys. There's one thing I'm good for. I'm an honest individual. I approached him. We went to do it. It was all going to be fun and games, but here's the reality. He's the bigger guy. I had nothing to lose, right? And so I understand where he's coming from. But Zach, do me a favor. Let's be honest, right? We definitely saw each other. We definitely had multiple conversations, and I'm an easy man to find, right? Not only do we have an entourage of Merlin shirts around us, we had a booth at the event, and I was live both days. So listen,
you can't miss us, Abs. In fact, there was so many Merlin shirts working around. People were like, wait, is Merlin a media company? There was so much of us going around there.
And I do want to reiterate this. We actually love Zach, and it's all love. And like, I'm gonna have him back on Good Morning Crypto. This is more of just like a lighthearted, spirited event. But if he's saying that he couldn't find me, guys, it's fake news, and it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be huge, and it's fake news.
Fake news. Fake news. Fake news.
There you go. There, you heard it right from the president himself.
So that being said, we never need to discuss this again, and you guys know the truth going forward. But we got 5,300 live listeners, guys. If you're watching on Twitter, you're enjoying this content, be sure to come on over to the brand new Good Evening Crypto channel. That's on YouTube. You're going to get a daily update from us, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, every single day. Now, XRP Sus said, give Johnny a cannoli. Listen, that is Johnny Cannoli with a K, and he's eating at least one a day, my friends. Now, this is what Dennis had to say. Excuse me. This is what Dennis had to say. No, I don't know if I can read that for $2, Dennis.
You want me to read it for you?
Go ahead.
So Dennis says, Zach, oh God, I don't know if I can. Zach's wife begged him to not get hurt. Yeah, you never know. Abs is a young gun. You got to stay away from them young guns. But listen, if you donate, we got to read it. So, I mean, as long as it's not vulgar, we're going to read it. And so there you go, Dennis. You earned your $2 right there. And maybe Zach's wife was a little worried for him. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But it'll be very, very interesting one day. Maybe we will see this match. Maybe it'll be next year, Abs, in Vegas. Maybe this is just the build up to next year's. I mean, people I actually think Abs, people are more excited about going to see you guys arm wrestle in Vegas if that comes to fruition, man.
Guys, we should just have an exclusive event, a pay-per-view event. But
yeah.
We'll have to discuss that. Now, we're 30 minutes into today's episode. We are officially 30 minutes into the Good Evening Crypto live stream. Big thank you to Johnny and Dominic for making time for us today. I thought it would be fun to kind of go through this video together, guys, because we're going to be having somebody said you guys in Rector are the best. I want to make it very clear. I watch Zach's content. I love Zach's content. I think Zach's awesome. I love interviewing on him on the show. So this is all in good fun. Just to be clear, there's some people may think there's actual beef. That is absolutely not the case. Now, Johnny Krypto, I thought it might be fun and valuable to kind of go through this content because this is Jake Claver explaining the domino theory. And we're going to be having Jake on Good Morning Crypto at some point. But what I think is so valuable about what Jake is saying right now is we're on the precipice of a macroeconomic shock where blockchain and blockchain solutions like the XRP ledger are going to be used as a solution for the global liquidity crisis. If that's the case, it factors in oil. It factors in stocks. And this is a 17-minute video. I wanted to see if our live chat wanted to kind of watch this with us together and narrate on this. I thought it might be valuable, guys. One's if you'd like to go through this content. Two's if you think we should just go into some other topics that we have prepped. But Johnny, here's the reality. Jake is calling for a $2,000 XRP, not in 10 years, not in 5 years, in the calendar year of 2025. And I saw it with my own eyes on his live stream the other night. And here's what's exciting about that, right? I hope I'm wrong and I hope Jake's right. Because if Jake's right and we're on the precipice of $2,000, I said this before the stream, Dominic is going to be owning the apartment that he is living in. He's going to own the entire building if that's the case. So we brought out some
Dominic
big
might
guns.
own the state. He might be able to buy the whole state. And I know, or maybe buy one of the islands next to your island, Abs, and my island
Right.
at 52,000.
So, guys, we're getting a lot of ones. I think a lot of people want to go through this
All
content.
right,
Let's
fire
do
it up,
together.
Abs.
We got 5,000 people here, guys. Just a quick reminder, smash that like button if you're enjoying this content. I'm going to throw this at 1.25x speed. I also want to give a big shout out to Jake. We appreciate Jake, and hopefully if he sees this is awesome. Big thank you. Hopefully we can use your content and you respect that. Big thank you to all the work and all the money that you contribute here, guys. Big shout out to Mikkel as well. Here's Jake's theory, the XRP domino theory, hidden systematic risk exposed.
With that said, buckle in, get your coffee, and I hope you watch till the end. So what I'm going to talk about today is what I call the domino theory. And it's going to be a little bit of macroeconomics. It's going to be systemic risk. And it's going to be a sequence of events that could cause pretty significant change in the financial system and how blockchain, smart contracts, regulation, and a shift in global economic power takes place. So the main components of this, I'm going to talk about each domino and their implications in the change in the pattern that would have to play out. And again, this is a theory, but I think it's likely, otherwise I wouldn't be putting the video out. So we'll see. And stick around to the end because I think a lot of people are going to be happy with how this ends. Scary in the middle though. So this is going to start with Japan, and then we're going to talk about US Treasuries, and then we're going to talk about Tether, and then we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and then we're going to talk about the US stock market and how the sequence of events could cause a significant downturn in US stocks and the broader economy. All right, so let's start with Japan. This year, Japan is poised for pretty significant upside in their stock market. The Nikkei is almost back to its all-time high. It hasn't been here since the 80s. And, they're positioned to actually do really well over the next decade. And with that, we see them start to raise their interest rates, which have been even negative at some points over the last couple of decades. And because of that, they've accumulated a very large position in US Treasuries. It's been more profitable for their government and other people there to hold foreign treasuries and US Treasuries in particular than it has been for them to own their own treasuries. So SBI is a very large financial power in Japan. Yoshitaka Kitao is the CEO of SBI, and he's a big believer in Ripple. SBI owns 10% of Ripple equity. They're a big believer in XRP, and we'll get to that at the end of this. They are also very progressive there in Japan, and they're working to issue a CBDC this year. They are likely going to be the first G7 nation to issue a CBDC. They're in the pilot phase of their launch of that, and the other G7 nations are still a bit behind. it's likely that they will launch a CBDC. And with that, it may incentivize their people and their government and the banks to hold bonds associated with that may yield even higher than U.S. Treasuries. And because they are the number one holder globally, aside from the U.S. itself, of U.S. debt and Treasuries, this would be a catalyst for them to dump U.S. Treasuries. And so there's the first domino. What I'm watching for is a situation where Japan's economy starts to do really well. They're able to pull themselves even further out of the hole, either by issuing a CBDC or other economic factors, where they begin to dump U.S. Treasuries, and maybe they do it all at one time. And that's really the potential problem, is if they were to dump all that debt on the market at one time. The Fed has slowed their purchase of foreign treasuries. The main entity that's been accumulating purchases of treasuries over the last couple of years has been Tether. So Tether is a stablecoin that provides the majority of liquidity in the crypto market. And if Japan were to dump U.S. Treasuries, it would cause a lot of instability in the treasury market. The Fed, they've already raised interest rates. They would have to raise them even higher. You'd see a spike. And the yield curve's inverted already. We've got 10-year treasuries lower than 2-year treasuries, which is not good. If you follow global and macroeconomics at any juncture or at any pace, you're probably aware of a lot of these things, but they're not good. We're in a very scary, unsound time for the U.S. economy and U.S. treasuries and the underlying debt that backs our system. Most of people have been screaming this for years, but I think this will actually be the tipping point where it becomes a problem. So they dump the treasuries, cause instability in the treasuries market. Interest rates will have to spike in order to combat that and incentivize people to hold and buy U.S. treasuries. But if the number one holder internationally were to dump, I think that other international holders would also dump. And this would be a domino effect there that would cause instability for Tether. Tether would have to mint more Tether in order to purchase those treasuries. But I think it would cause some systemic risk, and the backing for Tether would then be destabilized, and the stablecoin would come unpegged. And we've seen what's happened in the past when that's occurred for other stablecoins, like Terra Luna, if you were around for that. So that's my anticipation. We see Japan dump U.S. treasuries, again, because their economy is doing well. They issue a CBDC. They want to incentivize the government, the banks, the individuals there that are in Japan to hold their own debt instead of international debt. And that'll destabilize the treasury market and then destabilize Tether. So what are the implications there for Tether? Well, again, it provides the majority of liquidity to the crypto market. I don't know if you've ever tried to trade USDC or another stablecoin for something through an exchange, but the volume in that market is significantly less than Tether. Tether's, you can move millions of dollars through Tether. Ripple and their ODO, they even use Tether in certain corridors because it's more liquid than XRP in certain corridors. So that becomes destabilized, that destabilizes the crypto market. We've seen a huge run up in Bitcoin now before the halving, which is unusual. And
Johnny, I do just want to make a quick comment here, because what's interesting is that video is from a year ago. And think about where we are with the Genius Act, where the Genius Act could be that first domino that begins to annex Tether at a regulated environment. He was really focused on Japan. And I don't know if you remember this, but I showed a video on Good Morning Crypto maybe 3 months ago where a new banking consortium had been created in Japan to adopt the XRP ledger. And it was the 60 largest banks. I'm sure I can locate that video in the background as well. Love to get some context from you and Dom, and then we'll continue with the clip.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Abs, following along where he's going, we know that Japan has been one of the biggest investors in the U.S. And if they eventually decide that they want to, which would make sense for them to be able to invest in their own debt rather than our debt, then that could be something they would do. And so certainly they would dump at our expense. And not so far, the logic there where he's building up these domino effects, I could see where he's going with it. And so then obviously that would have a massive impact on U.S. treasuries and also potentially on Tether. And then interesting enough, and he was probably just going to get into that, so it'd be good to hear here. But that will then have an interesting impact on the crypto market, because most of the pairs today, when you trade, are in USDT. I mean, you can find some USDC on Coinbase, or you go to BitTrue and you can actually find them with XRP. Believe it or not, they're because they're an XRP house. But basically, it'll be interesting to see. I want to see where he's going to go with the rest of this, how he pieces these domino effects together. But so far, you can see Japan dumping us and driving, instability in the treasuries, which then affects Tether, which then has a domino effect on the entire crypto market. And let's continue to hear where he thinks how that ultimately, I want to hear how he thinks XRP comes in to save the day and drive the price up. I think I know where he's going, but let's hear what he says.
Guys, I want to give a massive shout out. We got 6,300 live listeners here. Massive thank you to anybody who's watching and enjoying this content. If you would enjoy this, you want some overtime, show us some love, smash that like button. And I think we're going to actually play this newer video, Johnny. This is going to break it down even further here. That video we're going to get into next was just published about 3 weeks ago, building upon some of the ideas we just explained. Dom, I wanted to get your reaction, then we'll dive right into that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Let's watch it. I agree with Johnny.
Johnny Krypto, the last thing I wanted to do in regards to the Tether comment is I think it presents an opportunity for other blockchains. Now, I know there's some part of this that could lead to a cascading effect in crypto pairs. That could be very negative for the actual prices extending well beyond Bitcoin. But let's listen to what Jake has to say in this short video. This is him, part 3, expanding on some of the ideas that we had just discussed. Here it is.
The world is finally about to change, and that's what we're going to get into in this video with the 3rd iteration of the domino theory. So a year and 3 months ago, I put out a video called the domino theory. And we went through a progression of events that would lead to the price appreciation of XRP, and there's been some changes that have occurred since then. Nothing to the main thesis
Shocker.
of the video, but little nuances that I wanted to rehash here and make sure we're clear before this actually all plays out here in the near future. And I do think it will be in the near future. So let's get into why that is, what things are actually going to have to take place for this to finally play out, and what the outcome of it is actually going to be for people. So in the original video, we talked about, the reverse carry trade, Japan unwinding. We saw a little bit of that last year in August. I thought maybe that was when things were going to go. And sure enough, they kicked the can. We got the interest rates there in Japan stopped, rising quickly. People re-levered. We've got more exposure now than we ever have to the reverse carry trade. And we're set up for a global liquidity crisis, the scale of which people are going to have a hard time comprehending when this actually plays out. But it is going to lead to everything that people in digital assets, and in particular XRP, have been hoping for a long time. But we are here in June, early June of 2025. We have the stablecoin bill finally on the floor for voting next week. And I think that has been what has been the holdup for this to actually play out and for Japan to kind of move the direction that we all know that they're going to have to at some point. The Fed has paused interest rates. The Bank of Japan has paused interest rates for more than 6-7 months here, holding things steady, kicking the can as far as they can, not having to print any more money. The Bank of Japan has, and they've walked a line of their yen appreciating against the dollar and depreciating against the dollar, holding it between 140 and 160 yen to $1. They've obviously put yield curve control in place a couple different times. That only happens when sovereign currencies are at risk and governments have to step in to keep things from getting out of hand. And we've seen that. All of those things have played out, but we haven't got that spark, that thing that's going to kick things into overdrive the way that people have wanted. And I think that's going to be oil. In 2014, and maybe even earlier than that, there was a confidant that the US government brought in. Many of you may know him, Jim Rickards, to talk about how the dollar could be displaced as a global reserve currency. And they ran war games. And in one of those war games, Jim talked about the Strait of Gibraltar being shut down and global oil prices skyrocketed. And that was a catalyst for the Bank of Japan to aggressively raise interest rates because of the energy cost and the inflation that would happen in their economy. And I think that that's actually likely what's going to play out here. We have conflict in the Middle East. It hasn't exacerbated yet. It hasn't got to a problem where they're shutting down straits or cutting off supply chains, or oil has skyrocketed. But we've seen an uptick here in the last 2 weeks. Like, the oil companies know something. Their stocks have started to rise. We've seen WTI crude start to increase in price slowly but surely, nothing aggressive. And that's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on an aggressive move to the upside, 10, 15% in a day, maybe more, that would be required for the Bank of Japan to start to see that they're going to have to intervene, and the only option they're going to have is to raise interest rates. But now that the stablecoin bill is on the floor, that's going to be okay. So let's play through this scenario. Something happens in the Middle East that causes a spike in oil. Obviously, oil companies are going to do well if that happens. And the problem with that is, again, energy costs in Japan are going to go up significantly in a very short period of time. The only way that the Bank of Japan will be able to combat that is to raise interest rates aggressively, to quell the inflation that they're going to see. Japanese investors that have traditionally held U.S. treasuries and bonds for the last 20, 30 years will start chasing those returns. And with that, they will leave U.S. treasuries, which is going to cause a problem. Japan is the largest foreign debt holder of U.S. treasuries. And so a lot of those will flow onto the market. And if I were the BRICS nations or other outside competitors to the U.S., I would just double down on that. I would also divest my treasuries at the same time. Many people have called this Project Sandman. basically to spiral the dollar. But we have the solution here, and it's on the floor. It's the stablecoin bill. Stablecoin bill is predicted to cause a demand for treasuries around $2.3 trillion once it's passed for people issuing stablecoins here in the US. From enterprises like Google, Amazon, Meta, you've got all of these large social media platforms that have bought up a bunch of payment licenses like X to be able to settle payments and transactions between the participants in their ecosystems. And then you've got traditional banks that would be launching stablecoins. Bank of America has already stated that as soon as we get stablecoin regulation, they will be launching their stablecoin. Citi, Goldman, BNY, you name it. All of these institutions will be rolling out their own stablecoin, and they may launch it on multiple networks. We've got USDC and Circle that have just recently gone public here, which was a big deal. Percent return on the first day last week when they went public. Big deal there. So stablecoins are here. Obviously, they've become very profitable. The banks, institutions, enterprises have seen that with Tether. Tether is the most profitable company in the world, even above and beyond BlackRock. And for the past 3, 4, 5 years here, they've been soaking up these treasuries as they've flown onto the market from foreign debt holders, as they've divested from the dollar, China, and Russia both, selling off large portions of treasuries onto the market. Tether has been the backstop for the Fed, not having to print more money to buy those treasuries here domestically. But with the stablecoin bill, Tether's going to have some problems. They've recently moved to El Salvador not too long ago, here in 2025. But with this stablecoin regulation, because it is a dollar-denominated stablecoin, that will be brought into the purview of the U.S. government. And because of the Bitcoin that they have on their balance sheet, they will not be able to be compliant. They've already moved away from Europe. We've had other exchanges such as Crypto.com delist them to de-risk from them. When we talked to MasterCard and Visa last year, they also mentioned that they do not use Tether, but they only use USDC. And now we have RLUSD that's been issued by Ripple that shows it's a proven model on how you should be going to market with a stablecoin. Audited, backed, verified, cash or cash equivalents that are backed one-to-one for the stablecoins that you're issuing on whatever chain, whether that's Ethereum, the EVM sidechain on the XRPL, Hyperledger, Solana, wherever your stablecoin's issued, you still need that one-to-one representation of value of the US currency backing it. It cannot be another digital asset such as Bitcoin. And I don't know if there's going to be other allegations or other things made against Tether that will cause them to be able to sanction them or remove that liquidity from these exchanges. But I anticipate a freezing of accounts for Tether when the stablecoin bill is passed.
I mean, Johnny, this is pretty interesting considering what we talked about this morning on Good Morning Crypto, where Senator, and I know I sound repetitive a little bit, but Senator Bill Hagerty told us when this bill is passed, Tether is non-compliant. So what Jake is saying is factually accurate. Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so I think first of all, there is going to be a challenge for Tether there, and I think Tether has been, hiding their books for the longest time. We don't know what the hell is on those balance sheets, and I think they're fearful of showing that. So, how do they comply? I mean, they're going to have to do a lot of cleanup behind the scenes, or like I said, you either comply or die. And I think they're going to be more, they're going to be in trouble if they don't figure a way to do this. And what's very interesting, I was just looking up some numbers here, and so take a guess. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot. So in total, right now, foreign countries own. Thank you, Allie. We really appreciate it.
Massive shout out to Allie. Allie, we appreciate you. And she DM'd me, Johnny. She got our signed t-shirt. So big shout out to Allie and Julie Taft. Big shout out to Julie as well.
Julie hooked up. Allie's got a great friend in Julie. So Allie, I don't know if you're able to take a picture and send us a picture so we're wearing that shirt and we can tweet it out there. But I'm glad you got the signed shirt. It's awesome. She's been an OG here. But Abs, right now, basically 8.8. If you add up all the foreign countries that own our debt, it's $8.8 trillion that the countries own. Japan alone, of the 8.8 trillion, owns 1.1 trillion. So they own a good chunk of our debt. What's interesting is what you heard Jake just talk about, and what we talked about earlier in the show, is when stablecoins come on. Thank you there, Love Stonks. I love it too. Moon's over here. Anyway, so what's interesting, Abs, you think about this, 8.8 trillion. They're not going to dump it all. Let's assume maybe they're going to dump a quarter of it, okay? Maybe one of these days we'll have a signed shirt we'll have to raffle off too. Who knows? But basically, let's say a quarter. That would put you around 2 trillion. But here's the beautiful thing. They start dumping it, but according to Jake anyway, in his theory, stablecoins could draw in about 2 trillion. It's almost a perfect balance where, yes, we would get hurt, but the stablecoin comes in and kind of absorbs all that. And then what you're really getting is a conversion of foreign currency switching over to U.S. debt through a stablecoin. What better way? This way, that's awesome, right? We want less countries supporting, I don't want countries owning our debt. We should own our own debt. So we own our own fate. The last thing you want is other countries owning your debt and being able to dump and screw with your economy, right? We don't want that. That's horrible. So this is actually awesome. It's almost like a transfer of wealth of it coming back to the US, but now in a stable coin that is used by forkers. It's brilliant. So we'll have to see if it plays out. We'll see how. But right now, it looks like almost an equal one-to-one transaction where we could absorb that pain and never see it because of the stablecoin bill.
You know what's interesting too, and Dom, I'm going to give you a chance to comment, is that, you know, me and Johnny had speculated for a really long time about why did Brad Garlinghouse get the meeting with Donald Trump and why did they meet on 3 separate occasions? I don't think they were discussing some lawsuit against Gary Gensler. I think they were discussing much bigger narratives, whether it's the tokenization of real world assets or the savior for U.S. Treasury bonds that stablecoins provides. All these different narratives tie together. What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with Johnny. The interesting thing is when you have Tether, right, as a customer of the treasuries, the more, and let's say USDC is a customer and Ripple, and the more stable coins that start to buy treasuries, it diversifies the ownership of treasuries. So it's not just Japan that owns a huge chunk and has the ability, like you said, Johnny, to influence our fate, right? If it's broken up against a lot of different parties, it's much harder to do.
Bingo. Perfect.
But my question there is like, okay, so Tether is no longer compliant. Wouldn't the ownership and market share then go over to USDC? Do you think we'll see that?
Yes.
That's so what I think. Abs, pull up that chart that you got there of all the other. I know you got something on all the other stable coins out there, but I think what will happen, Dom, there it is. I think USDC is by far in pole position. So I think a good chunk of the Tether, whatever Tether loses, will end up going to USDC. But Ripple was smart and got their coin, their token out there ahead of time and starting to work with exchanges to get it in. So I think they'll also pick up. It's like almost like a catch-all, right? Whatever's falling from the skies, you've got USDC and RLUSD as the two big other, RLUSD, RL small compared to USDC. But I think both of them will be the beneficiaries of whatever Tether loses.
And here's another piece of context here, Dom, is that USDC is now available on the XRP ledger. And what does that mean? That means people who use the USDC stablecoin are going to say, I can use it on the Ethereum blockchain, the Solana blockchain, or the XRP ledger. And which one are they going to use? The one that is the cheapest with the fastest transaction speed. That is why it's so important that USDC is now available on the XRP ledger. And today we got a brand new update that new XRP ledger amendment is now available on Uphold. So it's a pretty big moment from an accessibility standpoint. Feel free to give us some closing remarks and then we'll get back into the Jay Claver video.
You asking me?
Yep.
Cool. No, I agree. It's we'll see what happens. But yeah, let's get back into it.
Here we go, guys. This is Jay Claver talking about the inevitable collapse.
Or a delisting across the board from U.S. exchanges, which will leave a big gap for liquidity in the market. It is the main liquidity source for digital assets, but at least the dollar will be okay because that demand that will come from institutions and enterprises for these stablecoins and the issuance of those, they will be able to soak up the almost exact amount that's going to flow onto the market from these foreign debt holders around that $2.3 trillion mark. Just interesting how that all works out, isn't it? Kind of like it's coordinated. Who knows? So once that happens, it'll actually stabilize the debt market. I do think there will be a period of time where there's panic and chaos and people will be concerned about the US dollar's sovereignty and us being able to accommodate that. But I do think now that the bill is on the floor, it's likely that they will rush through that regulation separate of the Clarity Act, which is also being pushed now. I think the Clarity Act that will, show what is security and what's not will end up being pushed out to sometime in 2026 before we see actual regulation on the entire crypto space. I think these payment networks and specific digital assets that facilitate the value movement of these stablecoins might end up getting first mover advantage over some of these other networks. And some of these have been held back by lawsuits. There might be one, right here that many of you know, like, and love. They're watching this video that has been suppressed or held back from its adoption with the lawsuit for the SEC, which is still just hanging out there, waiting on one more filing from the SEC and the judge's final opinion, whether Ripple will be able to sell XRP to institutions or not. So we've got the reverse carry trade unwinding at scale. This is also going to cause sell-off across all markets. I know we got a lot of gold bugs that watch this channel. Love you guys. I'm a gold bug too. Love Austrian economics. Love Peter Schiff and Mike Maloney, Andy Scheckman, all those guys. But I hate to tell you, I think gold's going to take a hit with this one too. Across the board, stocks, commodities, bonds, it will not matter where your money is. There's going to be a mass liquidation as people rush to repay these loans in Japan when this occurs. They're going to sell off positions across the board. Gold, I think you could fall all the way back to around $2,200, $2,100, maybe even $2,000 per ounce. Does it get revalued on the other side of it? Who knows? I'm just speaking to a 30% drawdown across the board in almost all markets, potentially even more than that, depending on what the limit down is and if they're able to roll out this solution we're going to talk about in the background to save the day. Okay, so you got huge pressure across all these markets. You got a liquidity crisis in traditional markets, and now you got it in crypto because they've sanctioned Tether or frozen Tether or delisted Tether across all these exchanges. And in the background, you've also got all of these ETFs that have been filed for spot ETFs for XRP waiting to be approved. Franklin Templeton's deadline is on June 17th here in 2025. And I anticipate that that could be maybe the day or even a little bit before that, that we will get approval across the board for these XRP ETFs if this plays out previous to that date. I'm still waiting on BlackRock to throw their hat in the ring. They did make a filing. Well, supposedly they made a filing back in November of 2023. They set up a trust, an iShares Trust XRP ETF. They're in Delaware, which was reportedly false or fake by Bloomberg, which was taken down. But I'm highly confident that that entity still sits there ready to go at any given time if they were to file an S1 for their XRP ETF. We'll see how quickly that could actually get pushed through if that were the case, if there were a crisis that needed to be averted. But that's the way they would move liquidity into XRP very quickly. There would need to be a supply shock on the existing XRP that sits out in the ecosystem. So people have a hard time with total supply versus available supply and market cap. The available supply for purchase for XRP is significantly less than the total amount. We've got 50% locked up in escrow by Ripple. They release $1 billion.
And this is what I think is really important, guys. I just want to give you a quick reminder. We're 56 minutes into the episode. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to smash that like button. And if you're watching on Twitter, head on over to the Good Evening Crypto channel on YouTube. That's the brand new YouTube channel we are live streaming from now. So we love you guys. We appreciate you all. We're going to wrap it up right here. But what is Jake talking about next? The supply shock that occurs with XRP. Because a lot of people will say there's 100 billion in circulation. There is less than $1 billion that is currently available. Here it is.
Every month onto the market, and sometimes they only put out what they need to and they roll the rest of it back in on the backside, kind of like a treasury mechanism, because that's all the XRP that will ever exist. And there's actually less and less of it every single day because of the transactions on the network. About 5,000 XRP are burnt every day at the current rate. So with the limited supply that's available in the market, we're going to say somewhere between, go to the high side, 2 to 5 billion XRP available for purchase on the exchanges. Well, now, unfortunately for everybody else, these exchanges are going to need XRP. If you've ever read the Shane Ellis theory, if there was a liquidity crisis on BitFinex, which is the largest trader of Tether and XRP futures, by the way, now that the CME has been rolled out, that's another precursor that was needed for this to happen. XRP futures allows people that launch the spot ETFs to hedge their positions. All of these large investment banks, that's a precursor. That's how it's rolled out every time for Bitcoin, ETH, and any other digital asset that's received a spot ETF approval by the SEC. Futures on the CME had to come first, and there had to be enough liquidity there to be able to support it. So if we saw Bitfinex have a liquidity crisis, in the Shane Ellis theory, that's what drives XRP to $589. A lot of people love that number. That's where it comes from. So all these exchanges that are going to be tied to Tether that haven't delisted it or removed their necessity to be able to move value with it are going to have to look for something else. So they're going to be using their XRP for those reasons, and it's likely that they won't be selling it to the public any longer. So that constricts the supply even further. So now you have huge demand for these spot ETFs, people potentially divesting from their positions in Bitcoin ETFs because of the volatility in the market. A lot of people that have purchased these Bitcoin ETFs, pension funds, institutions, people that have put it on their balance sheet, MicroStrategy even, could also cause the problem. If they get to a point where they're going to get liquidated, then they will start divesting and selling off the Bitcoin as well. And it will be a negative spiral. We've not seen a 30 or 40% drawdown in Bitcoin since we've had the launch of the ETFs in early 24 for Bitcoin. And since then, we've seen a meteoric rise in its popularity, its visibility, its price, up over $100,000. And many people have continued to purchase it even above those levels, thinking that it's going to $1 million. Everybody thinks that that is a foregone conclusion at this point. And I'm not. So if we did see a 30 or 40 or 50 or 60% drawdown in Bitcoin back to, I think Bitcoin could drop as low as somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 per Bitcoin. That's going to be a big problem for these pension funds.
Really? I'm surprised by that, guys. I don't know if see, this is why it's hard to follow because I'm not entirely sure I agree with all the data points. Like a $10,000 to $20,000 Bitcoin. But give me some of your thoughts, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, I find that hard. Consider, okay. So here's the problem with this, right? We're talking about people are going off of history. And in the past, you look, okay, the bull and bear markets, we've dropped down. But there's one major thing that has changed since then. Two, actually. Now, for the first time ever in human history, we have an ETF, a Bitcoin. Never had it before in Bitcoin's birth, right? Of the 15 years been around. So you got that, which adds stability to the price. And then the second thing you now have is regulation coming. I find it very, very, very hard to believe we're going to go, we're at 100 now and drop all the way to 10 to 90% pullback.
We're going to have bigger problems if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Exactly. No, I mean, do I think 60? Yeah. Do I think 60, 70,000 Bitcoin? Absolutely.
But
I could see a pullback to 60 or 70,000, but to 10 or 15, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we see 10, you better pack the truck up. But
there's too much adoption, I think.
There's too much adoption. Not only that, to be honest with you, MicroStrategy, I believe their average cost, they're highly levered. I think it's around maybe $6,000 or something like that, or it's somewhere six. I've seen two numbers: 6,000, 23,000. So they would be fighting like crazy to prevent that from happening. So I just don't see it happening. Abs 10,000 Bitcoin. I don't think we ever see that. Just the way I don't think we'll ever see a 24-cent XRP, even a 50-cent XRP. I don't think you're ever going to see that again either.
Well, that's music to my ears, Johnny. Dennis commented, if Tether dumps to comply, does MicroStrategy dump, etc.? That's the cascading effect that I think Jake is kind of outlining, is that if we see this Tether pairing and this Tether dominance diminish, the number one coin or token that's going to be affected in the short term would be the Bitcoin pairing, because Tether is responsible for so much of the liquidity on the Bitcoin network, guys. But I'd love to ask the live chat. I'm going to throw the results on screen. One's in chat. If you agree with Jake's take thus far, do you think we could see a $10,000 to $20,000 Bitcoin? One's for yes, two's for no. I'd love to hear some of the responses. But Johnny, I'm going to let this play out here, and then we'll continue to break it down, guys. We are officially into overtime. Dom, you are free to go. I know that you got other things to do as well. I want to make sure that that's absolutely clear. But I want to give a big thank you to Dom and Johnny for making time for us tonight. We got 7,900 live listeners on all platforms. And I just want to remind you all, if you're enjoying this content, you want more of this kind of stuff every day, head on over to the brand new Good Evening Crypto channel. We got about 4,280 subscribers in our first 60 days. So massive shout out to our community. We are one of the fastest growing crypto channels on YouTube. And that is not subjective. That's a matter of fact, my friend.
When you head over there, I just forgot to tell you, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribing to the actual YouTube channel and the notifications, so that whenever we launch a live, you'll know when it's coming, and you can not miss an episode.
Bada bing, bada boom.
It's cool to join, guys. I'm a big fan too, so cool to be a part of it.
There we go, guys. And you know what's funny is that Johnny, remember, we actually got to have Black Squirrel. I don't know his real name. I'll say Black Squirrel live on the show in Las Vegas. Pretty cool that Dom's here. We got to get NFT tones out of those bed sheets sometime soon, my friend. But let's let this Jake Labor play.
ETFs, the investment banks, these sovereign wealth funds, these companies that have put it on their balance sheet, they're going to have huge unrealized losses from where they purchased it. And the only way they're going to be able to divest that real time on the back end of the stock market, specific for the investment banks, is to move to instant settlement. Well, it just so happens May 28th of 2024, they moved to T+1 for settlement between the clearinghouses and the brokers, with the option to settle real time via a digital asset if there's enough liquidity in it. So if you saw, and also I want to talk about the traditional rotation from Bitcoin into other assets. Traditionally, it's been on these exchanges that we've seen the rotation. Now, the majority of the liquidity that is in Bitcoin is through these ETFs. And so the only way that you're going to get a rotation in traditional markets is to something else that exists in traditional markets. So if you had a meteoric rise and FOMO of XRP pushing the price higher, you might see a huge divesting or jump from Bitcoin into XRP, again, driving the supply shock and the price higher, all to support the back-end settlement of the stock market for them to be able to de-risk their positions in Bitcoin because of the systemic risk that now exists because of Bitcoin. 2 years ago, we didn't have that. Now we do. There are a lot of institutions, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, treasuries, investment banks, like I mentioned before, that have pretty significant allocations to this asset. And if they weren't able to divest very quickly, Bitcoin trades 24/7, 365 within about 30, 40 minutes for settlement. Whereas the back end of the stock market is T+1s next day. They could move to instant settlement and get out of those positions and also jumpstart the economy. The velocity of money would pick up substantially if we move to real-time settlement between counterparties on the back end of the stock market and for other applications. And you might ask, well, how are they going to do this? There's no way that that stuff already exists. Actually, it does. In 2022, the DTCC finalized Project Ion, which was developed in correlation with R3 for the settlement, real-time settlement of the back end of the stock market using their infrastructure. R3 just happens to use XRP as its primary settlement mechanism if there's enough liquidity in it. So all of these things culminating all at once to drive the price of XRP from where it sits today to potentially 3 or 4 digits in a very, very short period of time, culminating in an event that would save the financial system, provide liquidity instantly when it was needed, and jumpstart the economy to make sure that we're able to recover from this black swan event that people they've known is coming for multiple decades because it's been set up. So that's my thesis. This is the domino theory. Hopefully this makes sense to you. So just as an overarching view here, we're going to get a spike in oil. This is my guess on how the Bank of Japan is going to be forced into a corner to raise interest rates. They will aggressively raise interest rates, which will cause the unwind or the reverse carry trade, which is tens of trillions of dollars have been borrowed from the Bank of Japan over the last 20 years and put to work across multiple markets around the world to be able to generate a return on basically free cash. Their interest rates were zero and sometimes negative at some points. So many pension funds, hedge funds, anybody that could borrow billions of dollars, including Warren Buffett, have done it from the Bank of Japan over the past 20 years. Tens of trillions of dollars will then look to leave all of those markets to be able to repay those loans all at the same time. It will be a catastrophic loss across the board in all of these markets. And on that, we will see a divesting of treasuries, which will cause Congress, the Senate, the House to rush stablecoin regulation through to be able to save the bond market and the dollar and drive demand here in the US for the flood of treasuries that come on the foreign debt market. So they'll stabilize that, but that will cause implications for Tether and crypto and Bitcoin and all these institutions. And they will roll out the ETFs to drive the price of XRP up substantially higher if the case settles with Ripple. All of this stuff culminates right at the right time for XRP to have the perfect storm to rise from around $2 today to hundreds or potentially thousands of dollars in a very short period of time to be able to provide liquidity in a liquidity crisis that you might call orchestrated. So if you found value in this video, if you think it's something...
Guys, first of all, I did find value in the video, and I want to give a massive shout out to Jake Claver. Now, Johnny Krypto, let's let NFT Tones throw up a background just out of pride, my friend. So I just want to do you a favor, NFT Tones. Throw up a green screen background. It is automated on the StreamYard, and I'm doing my friend a favor.
I told him that.
But here's the reality. Johnny, let's stay focused on the important point, which is he's anticipating a supply shock. And it comes from organizations like the World Economic Forum, the BIS, R3, all these global consortiums that are going to need a blockchain solution for the liquidity crisis that he's anticipating is on the horizon. It's a mouthful. It's kind of a lot. And Jake did a great job of explaining it in that very short video. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, and then we'll get NFT Tones rocking and rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, so now I know, obviously makes sense why he calls it domino effect. So many things need to fall in line. And frankly, for that to happen, it needs to be coordinated. And the big boys, when they play like that, that's what they do. They do. I think Tones is still around, but they do coordinate these things up. And so a lot of things need to fall in place. And whenever you have a scenario like that, for me personally, I always, I'm a more of the conservative type guy where you think it's going to go one way. It's a fair hypothetical. I get it. I can totally see where you paint that picture, where you have everything kind of crashing, falling apart. It kind of like remembers, Abs, it reminds me of 2008. Now, you might have been too young to remember the housing crash. Maybe you remember the housing crash. I don't know. You were probably 10, 12 years old. So, yeah, you kind of maybe was on the fringe. You were in that, yeah, so you were a little too young for that, Abs. But during the housing crash, when that was happening, the governments did step in and we need to save the banks. They're too big to fail. We got to come in and we got to help them out. And so, could that be a scenario where, and that's basically what Jake's describing here. It's almost another similar kind of everything kind of crashing, coming down. Oil rates go. So I get it, right? Oil's going high. Japan has to raise the rates. They dump their U.S. treasuries. That then destabilizes Tether, which destabilizes the crypto market, which then affects stock market. Everything comes crashing down. U.S. government has to step in, find ways to do quick liquidity. And, oh, by the way, here's this new technology, XRP, that can solve the problem. I mean, it's a fair hypothetical. I mean, there's so many things need to happen. If you were to say to me, Johnny, would you bet your house on that? Sorry, man. I'm not betting my house on that theory.
How about the kids, huh?
Yeah, maybe maybe an arm or a leg or something. Maybe a half a kid. I don't know. But no, I'm just kidding. At the end of the day, I'm not betting on that to happen. But can it happen? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, it happened in 2008. We had a whole bunch of things systemically happen, Abs, that took down the financial system. And it all started with the U.S. government deregulating the banking system, and saying that anybody and their mother could get loans. And that's what we saw happening, is there were different, anybody can get a loan. You didn't even have to have a job and you got a loan. And sure, that you're setting up the system for failure. So if we do start seeing things like that to happen, could we see a scenario where that could be? So certainly, we'll just have to wait to see if that's what happens.
Well, it's funny because Waters Above put out this price prediction earlier, Johnny Krypto, where he was talking about an $18 XRP by late July. That is like pennies on the dollar to what Jake is predicting. And I do think, again, that there's a lot of validity to the outline that Jake stated. That's like a 2000 IQ play right there, right? It's like he outlines it like you wouldn't believe. But I want to remind our listeners, we are giving away this autographed Merlin hat by David Schwartz. I've showed you this before. We're going to be giving this away at 10,000 subscribers. So if you're enjoying this content, you want a chance to win this hat right here. When the GEC channel reaches 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to be auctioning or raffling off this hat because we're doing it for free. So it's not an auction. I'm going to be giving this hat away because a lot of people are excited about that. So I just want to
until then, Abs, we do have this beauty that is signed by me, Abs, and Coach JV. And this bad boy, we will get the ball rolling tonight. Now, it's not going to be raffled off tonight, but we'll give you the details tonight of what's going to happen. It'll be very similar to what we did last time. I'll get a survey link sent out on my Twitter page. You guys will go there, sign up for it. And then when we do the next live show, you can also sign up during that show. But you have to be live during the show, and we will spin that wheel like we spun it before. Everybody likes when we spin the wheel. We'll spin the wheel, and we'll pick a winner on the next live show. So we're going to give people some time to sign up for it. We want to give you guys, at least a week or so. But remember, you have to be live during the show because we will call you to validate your live if you want to win the hat.
Absolutely, guys. And here's an interesting video, and I'm going to begin wrapping it up here. I don't know if we got 8,500 people. I'm exhausted. Got to be honest. We're an hour and 11 minutes into this stream. We're continuing to rock and roll here. Now, Johnny, I know you want to bring your young gun up here. NFT Tones. Just let me know, my friend. You let me know. We're going to play this short video, and then we'll keep going here.
Imminently, literally imminently could happen during this talk.
Sorry, and this is the ex-CEO talking about how they are launching a payments portion of their application.
It's going to be unlimited video, right? In the US, we're about to launch X Money. You've seen the enhancements with X Chat for premium users, off the charts capability. So think about what we're doing. Instead of getting distracted by clickbait noise, you're thinking about more people coming to the platform to spend more time to do more things. Soon you're going to be able to live your whole financial life on the platform. Peer-to-peer payments, stored value, pay a creator, watch a pay-per-view. I mean, come on, we're talking about what's next, not what stuff you talk about. It's like a fantasy of the past. So I wouldn't be here spending jam-packed 5 days if we didn't have tremendous partners along with us. I get the platform imminently, literally imminently could happen during this talk. It's going to be unlimited video, right? In the US, we're about to launch.
There you have it, Johnny Krypto. And as you can tell, X Money, X Payments, whether it's Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Meta, all of these different companies are going to be launching their own crypto wallets. And I believe probably their own stablecoin. But we'll have to break that down maybe on Good Morning Crypto tomorrow, guys. Let me know some of your thoughts, and we'll go to NFT Town.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, we know that Elon's all about wanting to turn Twitter into basically WeChat. And WeChat, for those of you who don't know, in China, is basically, an app to be able to talk to people and to pay for everything. I mean, literally, Abs, when you go to China, and I know you haven't been there, I've been there, like, people don't have a wallet. And they literally just this is what they do. They take their phone and do that. Well, WeChat, and that's how they pay their bill. That's exactly what Elon wants to bring to X, and he's going to do it through X. And the question is, what technical, what digital blockchain will he use? That is still what's up in the air. We'll have to wait and see what I'm not going to speculate because you never know what Elon, he'll do something like Doge or some weird thing, but we'll see what he ends up going with for making that happen. But to me, I just think that, again, it's just another sign that digital payment solutions will be coming. They're beginning coming in every single which way. And, if you remember, you kept hearing a lot about back end. Jay kept talking about that, the back end solutions, right? We're going to be seeing back end solutions coming up. And so, for me, you'll see the blockchain starting to solve those problems, as well as solutions for these digital programs. And if XRP gets chosen, oh my God, imagine the use case if Elon picks XRP to be X's payment system. Boy, you want to talk about a massive use case, Abs. That would be amazing.
Stellar is another one I'd keep an eye on, guys. Now, Tonesonator, we're excited to have you here, my friend. Some call him NFT Tones. I call him a more handsome Johnny Krypto, guys. That's just that's a contrarian take here now. But NFT Tones, I think it's been a while since we've talked to you. One of the things that's most important about what we're going through right now is that the government is regulating the asset class and Wall Street is excited about blockchain technologies. What are some of your thoughts broadly overall? Whatever sticks out to you, some of the major changes since last time you were on back in 1994.
Thanks, Abs. I don't know if it's been that long, but I mean, there's a lot of things that are sticking out to me. I'm starting to see a lot more places starting to accept cryptocurrencies. I'm starting to see a lot more people even be open-minded. I've been able to get my friends somewhat more open-minded into the idea of crypto. And I also got to say hi to everybody in the chat because it's been a long time, guys, and it's great to be back. But yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see more people just go along with the idea of crypto and be more open-minded to it. And it's great to see. I think we're going to see a lot more tokenization of like licenses, house deeds, stuff like that will be on the blockchain eventually. I think we'll start to see that. But it's all rolling out. The more we see regulation and stuff like that come out, and the more stuff like that we see, the safer people will realize this space is, and the more people will dive on in. And we're all here early, so we're still pretty early. So.
Well, if you look closely enough, you can see a positive twinkle in Johnny Krypto's eye right now, guys. And I want to give a massive shout out to everybody, guys, as we begin wrapping it up for today. Johnny, one thing is clear, whether it's us or President Trump, the future for digital assets is going to be centered in America. And that is what Donald Trump had to say. I think this would be kind of be a good way to close out today's episode, guys. We already have 8,800 live listeners joining us tonight. If you like this live stream, if you enjoy this content, first of all, massive thank you for you joining the program and supporting us. We're at 247 likes. Can we break 250 on YouTube? That is the question, my friends. But regardless, we love and appreciate you all. I want to give a massive thank you as well to everybody who donated. Just going to read off a couple of the names: Topher, Mentalect, Romo Royal, KG, Dennis, Firedog, Trevor, John, Dennis again, XRP Sus, Ali, and of course, Dennis one more time. So a huge thank you to anybody who donated. We greatly appreciate your support here on the Good Morning Crypto channel. And Johnny, this is what Donald Trump stated just 24 hours ago. The Senate just passed an incredible bill that is going to make America the undisputed leader in digital assets. Nobody will do it better. It is pure genius. Digital assets are the future, and our nation is going to own it. We are talking about a massive investment and big innovation. The House will hopefully move lightning fast and pass a clean Genius Act. Get it on my desk ASAP. No delays, no add-ons. This is American brilliance at its best, and we are going to show the world how to win with digital assets like we've never seen before. Shout out to Donald Trump rallying the people this morning, or I should say last night, Johnny. But what are some of your thoughts?
I love how, pull that back up. I love how, saying like, get it on my desk, no delays and no add. He's literally telling the House, don't change the freaking, because the House can go and change the bill too. Then it's going to go back to the Senate to vote again, right? And instead, what do we got here? He's like, come on, man, just sign the damn thing, pass it on, get it to my desk. And he is, the one thing I love, and I know we got another donation, so we got to read that in a second. But Abs, the thing I want to say that I absolutely love about Trump is this is a guy that cares about America. Love him or hate him, it don't matter. I don't care whether you love or hate him. But his actions are all I judge him by. And his actions, dude, the guy cares about America. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew digital assets could put us in a position to start winning. I mean, U.S. has usually been a technology leader, Abs. That's the one thing we have left. We don't do manufacturing anymore in the U.S., okay? Now, he's trying to bring that back, but it's very hard. But the one thing the U.S. took pride on is being technical innovators. And we would have lost that, Abs. You have no idea how critical this is and how many jobs will now be built here in America. Software jobs, development jobs, and then technologies and businesses that are going to be built because he chose to make America the flagship station of digital assets going forward. This is tremendous for our organization, for our country. Everybody should be happy. Don't matter whether you love or hate him. Be happy that he's doing what's right for America, and it's putting in a position to continue to lead in innovation which is going to create jobs for you and your children in the future.
Well, Charles is also creating jobs for me and my children as he donated $20 and commented Johnny Rockstar Jr. Big shout out to NFT Tones, guys, aka the young and handsome Johnny Krypto. Now, one of the things that I want our listeners to keep an eye on as well is rate cuts. And Mark Smithson just donated a super sticker. Big shout out to you, my friend. Thank you so much for watching the show and supporting the channel. $10 donation from Mark Smithson. You are the man. I'll say that with confidence. Now, Johnny Krypto, this is what Donald Trump said to Jerome Powell. Quote unquote, too late Jerome Powell is costing our country hundreds of billions of dollars. He is truly one of the dumbest and most destructive people in government, and the Fed is complicit. Europe has had 10 cuts and we've had none. We should be 2.5 basis points lower and save billions on all of Biden's short-term debt. Let me remove this. We now have low inflation. Too late in American disgrace. Now, those are some strong words from a sitting president to the Fed chair. Johnny, have you ever seen a president speak to the Fed chair that way? That's an honest to God question before President Trump. Have you ever seen this before?
Never to that extent. Calling the Fed chair the dumbest person in the world. No, not at all. But you know what? I'm not going to sit here and bash Trump for going after the guy that he thinks is hurting the country. I mean, Trump has made a lot of good decisions. And if he thinks we need to be lower, then you know what? Maybe the Fed chair, by the way, this is the problem with the Fed chair is the Fed, nobody knows this, but it's not a government agency. It's not controlled by the president. It's not run by it. So all he could do is criticize him and he can, appoint it. But the reality is this is what happens, Abs, when you give away your power to produce money. You understand, and most people, I think, understand that the U.S. government, Treasury Department, has the ability to print its own money. We don't need the Federal Reserve. But in 1913, they passed the Federal Reserve Act, transferring the power to this entity. And this is now the challenge. And now Trump is sitting here going, come on, guys, let's get this, let's fix this. And they don't have to respond. They don't have to do it. Dude, that's a major problem for our country. But you're never going to fix it. It's been too ingrained into our culture. Most people think the Federal Reserve is a U.S. government. I mean, Abs, until you started, if you heard the term Federal Reserve, would you not think that's a government agency? Right.
Well, I think that, of course, right? It's like, and I've always used the term, and people get fired up when I talk about this, but progressive, right? I love that one where it's like, progressive. It's so, you're such a great person. You're doing it for other people. You're a progressive individual. Yeah. Then you get into the ideologies and you're like, hey, is this actually productive or good for society? But we got 9,000 live listeners, guys. I want to give a big shout out to every single person who watches the show and enjoys this content. We couldn't be more thankful, and we're going to continue doing this kind of stuff. We are an hour and 22 minutes into our late night stream. You know what that means, Johnny Krypto? Only 12 hours until Good Morning Crypto. So if you enjoyed this content, again, if you're watching on Twitter, head over.
It really means only 8 hours that poor Abs gets to sleep if he goes to bed right now.
Right.
Let me give a shout out to my man Abs. This boy works in the morning, wakes up, does a Good Morning Crypto show, then goes to his full-time job during the day, then goes to the gym, finds some time for eating, and then back here at nighttime to put a show together. I mean, that is a true beast right there, my man. I'm so proud.
Can I get a USA, my friends? And that's what it's all about. And of course,
USA. What you really should get is somebody go smash that subscribe button for Abs. Smash that subscribe button there and make sure you join the channel so that we can grow that number. And let's help Abs get to 10,000 subscribers by, let's say, I'd like to see that happen by the end of the summer. Come on, guys. Help them get to 10,000.
So Lovestocks asked, do I have a full-time job? Now, listen, here's the reality, guys. We're on Good Evening Crypto. This is like a close family over here. I consider this all the diehard people who came over here. So I'll just be honest about the situation. I wouldn't say it's a full-time job, Johnny, right? What would you call it? You would say it's a full-time responsibility. I'm an owner of a particular building of a business. That's as vague as I can be with this whole thing. So it's not like I have to be clocking in and clocking out. It's more a management style type of a thing. So yes and no, right? And I'm going to always be totally transparent and totally honest. But massive thank you to you guys. If you enjoy this content, just hit the like button. That's all we care about. As long as you keep showing up, you keep interacting with the live chat, hopefully all this information, not only is it fun, not only is it good energy that we're putting out there, we're providing some education, but also this helps us make money, and we all make money together. We don't care. If you never donate to the show, you never have to donate. I am more than thankful when people do that, but it is not We do this to interact with people. We do this to build a community. And most importantly, we do this to get rich together. That's the best part about crypto. Think about it in November, Johnny. Remember all your close friends and family who had taken your advice, dollar cost average into XRP, had been there for several years. Everybody was winning at the same time.
Yes.
I think that same type of thing is going to happen towards the back end of this year, guys. So we love you. We appreciate you, Johnny. I'm going to give it to you. Then we'll close out with Tones and wrap it up for today.
You know, you said something so important. We're all winning together, and we've seen live proof of that. The guy that donated the tickets so that we could raffle those to you guys for XRP Vegas, that came from somebody that won because they watched the show, they built confidence in it, and they invested in crypto, and they gave back to the show, and that's awesome. And you know, and there's more people. Black Squirrel has done a similar thing, right? There are people doing that. They're making a lot of money and they're donating to the show. And Abs, this community is so great that I didn't even know this, and I know you didn't know this either. Our community has bonded so well that they actually created their own. You guys created your own Discord. I heard you guys created your own Discord. You get together, you know, without us, and you guys are chat because you love each other so much. And I love that about you guys. And actually, I even joined the Discord ads. Every once in a while, I'll drop a comment in or throw a picture just to say hi to them. But I just love the fact that this community is showing humanity, about humans coming together, forming friendships and doing things and winning. There's nothing better than winning together. And I'm so happy that that's going to happen. And someday we're all going to be, you know, living on islands together. It's going to be all. Maybe we'll even call it XRP Island. There we go. How about that, Abs?
Absolutely, guys. I couldn't thank you enough. And I want to give a big shout out to Dom, shout out to Tone, shout out to Johnny Krypto, guys. If you enjoyed this content, it's 11:14 on the East Coast. That means I got to get some shut eye. I got to be up, start prepping about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, Johnny. And you know me, we got to get some push-ups in between as well. So we love you. We appreciate you. We just got another live donation, guys. Flashy Gordy commented, GMC and GEC equals the greatest shows on planet Earth. Now, thank you so much. And here's the best part. We're going to continue to improve. If you think we're good now, hopefully we're just going to keep getting better, keep finding ways to bring you guys value. And that's what it's all about. And I just want to remind you guys, I did announce this earlier. We are going to be giving away this signed David Schwartz hat when we reach 10,000 subscribers. So couldn't be more excited to do that and just continue to give back to you guys because we have the best community in the entire game, Johnny. But we love you all. We appreciate you all. And we'll see you in the next one.
Good night.